Use headphones for the best experience.
I need to be honest about something. I've been putting this off for 11 days now. 11 days of sitting with what I saw. Telling myself I'd write it down. Telling myself that getting it out of my head and onto a screen would make it smaller. Make it manageable. Something I could look at from the outside instead of carrying around inside my chest like a second heartbeat. It hasn't gotten smaller. If anything, the longer I wait, the worse it gets. Because the thing I saw on those cameras, the thing I keep seeing when I close my eyes, isn't fading. It's sharpening, and certain details I thought I'd imagined are turning out to be details I didn't imagine at all. My name is Marcus. I'm 34. I work as a building superintendent for a residential complex in Brampton, Ontario. A mid-rise 62 units, built in the late 80s. Nothing special. Brown brick exterior, that particular shade of beige hallway carpet that every building from that era seems to share. Fluorescent ceiling panels, fire doors that don't quite close flush. The kind of place that looks like it was designed by someone who understood function but had never once thought about how a space makes a person feel. I've been the super here for just over 3 years. The job came with a basement unit, free rent in exchange for being on call, essentially living inside the building I maintain. At the time, it felt like a decent trade. 40-hour weeks of fixing leaky faucets and resetting breaker panels. And in return, I didn't have to worry about Toronto rent prices eating me alive. The security system was already installed when I started. 12 cameras total, 4 in the parking structure, 2 covering the main entrance and lobby, 2 in the stairwells, and 4 spread across the residential hallways, 1 per floor, 2nd through 5th. The system records to a local DVR unit in the maintenance office, a small room off the boiler area in the basement, maybe 20 feet from my apartment door. I check the cameras regularly, not obsessively, just part of the routine. The system isn't sophisticated. The cameras record in a washed-out gray-green. The frame rate is low enough that movement has a slightly stuttered quality, and the timestamps drift by a few minutes if I don't resync them. It's functional. It does what it needs to do. Or it did, until about 3 weeks ago. The first thing I noticed wasn't on the cameras at all. It was a feeling. And I know how that sounds. Believe me, I've had 3 weeks to think about how it sounds. But I'm telling you anyway because it's relevant. I started feeling watched. Not in a dramatic way. It was subtler than that. The feeling you get when you're in a room you thought was empty, and you slowly become aware that someone else is breathing. That slight shift in the air, that sense that the space around you has become occupied. I first noticed it in the hallways. I'd be walking to a unit on the 3rd floor, and somewhere between the elevator and the apartment door, this weight would settle over me, like the air between the walls had thickened just enough to notice. I told myself it was the lighting. Fluorescent tubes at the end of their lifespan give off a barely perceptible flicker. Not enough to consciously see, but enough to trigger a low-level stress response. I'd read that somewhere. It made sense. I added replace hallway tubes to my task list and moved on. The feeling didn't stop after I changed the lights. 2 weeks and 3 days ago. I know the exact date because I ended up checking it against the footage timestamps. I had a call from Mrs. Okafor in Unit 409. Water stain on her ceiling, which usually means a leak in 509 above her. Standard stuff. I grabbed my toolbox, took the elevator to the 5th floor, walked down the hallway. The tenant in 509 wasn't home. I used my master key, found the bathroom supply line had a slow drip, tightened the fitting, checked for mold. 20 minutes. Maybe. Routine. When I came back out into the hallway, I stopped. I don't know why I stopped. There was no sound, no movement, nothing visually wrong. The hallway looked exactly the way it always looks. But I stood there in front of 509's door, with my toolbox in my hand. And for about 5 seconds I did not move. Something in me had locked up. Some part of my brain was processing information that my conscious mind hadn't caught up with yet. Then the moment passed. I shook it off. That night I was in the maintenance office doing paperwork, and I glanced at the security monitors the way I always do. 2nd floor, empty. Third floor empty. Fourth floor, Mrs. Okafor walking toward the elevator with her small dog. Fifth floor, empty. Obviously empty. It was almost 11 at night, but I found myself staring at the fifth floor feed, at that specific stretch of hallway outside 509, and I felt that same thickness in the air even though I was looking at it through a screen from a floor below. I pulled up the recorded footage from earlier that day, found the timestamp, 2:47 p.m., me walking down the fifth floor hallway toward 509, toolbox in my right hand. I watched myself use the key, go inside. The hallway sat empty for 19 minutes. Then I came back out, and I saw the moment. The freeze. Me standing there motionless, staring down the hallway. Except when I watched the footage, I wasn't staring down the hallway. I was staring directly into the camera. I felt something cold drop through my chest, because I remembered that moment. I was looking toward the far fire door. I remember the small window set into it, the wire mesh in the glass. I was looking at that, not up, not at the ceiling-mounted camera 15 feet behind me and to my left, but on the footage. My face was turned directly toward the lens. My eyes, even in that low-resolution gray-green image, were pointed straight into it, with an expression I can only describe as patient. I sat in that maintenance office for a long time. Eventually, I told myself it was a parallax issue. Wide-angle lenses distort angles. Things that seem like they're facing one direction can appear to be facing another. I'd seen it before with tenants. It's a known thing. I believed that explanation for about 48 hours. 2 days later, I was replacing a smoke detector battery on the third floor. Quick job, 5 minutes, in and out. Later that evening, I pulled up the footage to check on something unrelated, and while scrubbing through, I passed through the window of time when I'd been up there. I saw myself arrive from the elevator, walk down the hall, swap the battery. Normal. But about 6 minutes after the elevator doors closed behind me, a figure appeared at the far end of the hallway. It came from the direction of the stairwell. The fire door opened slowly, and someone stepped through. The image quality made details difficult, but I could see the general shape. Male, medium build, dark clothing. He walked down the hallway in the exact path I had walked, stopped at the exact same spot where I'd changed the battery, stood there for a few seconds, then continued to the elevator, pressed the button, waited, and stepped inside. I felt a low hum of unease, but nothing more. It was a residential building. People walk through hallways. The fact that he'd stopped in the same spot meant nothing, but something made me rewind. Something made me watch his walk again, more carefully. He walked with his weight slightly forward, left foot landing a fraction before the right completed its arc. A subtle lean, barely noticeable, like someone compensating for a toolbox in their right hand. Except he wasn't carrying anything. He was walking like me, the specific gait I'd developed from 3 years of carrying a heavy toolbox on the right side. That slight left-forward lean, he had it exactly. I rewound again, watched my own walk from minutes earlier. They were identical. I closed the footage. My heart was doing something it had never done before. Not beating fast exactly, but beating wrong. Like there was an extra half beat in there that didn't belong. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the building. Old buildings talk, pipes groan, the boiler clicks, the elevator mechanism hums. I knew every sound this place made, every creak, every settle, every expansion joint popping in the cold. That night, I heard a sound I didn't recognize. Faint, a soft rhythmic compression, like footsteps on carpet, coming from directly above me. My apartment is below the lobby level. Above me is the main floor, the entrance, the mailboxes, the lobby seating area that nobody ever uses. At 2 a.m., there should have been nothing up there. The footsteps crossed from one side of my ceiling to the other, paused, crossed back, paused, crossed once more. The same path, the same pace, the same number of steps. They were pacing. I got up, put on shoes, took my keys, went upstairs. The lobby was empty. Entrance doors locked, mailbox area still. The fluorescent lights hummed their flat, constant hum. I stood there for a full minute, listening. Nothing. I went back downstairs, got into bed, pulled the covers up. The footsteps started again. Same path, same pace, same number of steps. I did not go back upstairs. The next morning, I pulled up the lobby camera footage from 2 a.m. The footage showed the lobby empty, motionless, for the entire period in question. No one entered. No one walked across the frame, but at 2:07 a.m., something happened to the image. It didn't glitch, exactly. It didn't scramble or freeze. What it did was shift. The entire frame, the walls, the floor, the mailboxes, everything shifted about 2 inches to the left, as if the camera had moved. But the camera is bolted to the wall. It hasn't moved in years. The frame held that shifted position for exactly 43 seconds. Then it shifted back. I checked the other cameras from the same time window. None of them shifted. Just the lobby. Just during the footsteps. I called the security company. A tech named Ravi came out that afternoon, checked the DVR, the connections, the camera housings, ran a diagnostic. Everything came back clean. He watched the frame shift twice, frowned and said it was probably a voltage fluctuation from the boiler kicking on. He tightened some connections, updated the firmware, and left. That night, I sat in the maintenance office and watched the feeds live. All 6 cameras. I told myself I was just being careful, just doing my job. At 11:48 p.m., the 4th floor hallway camera showed movement. Someone walking down the hall. Male, medium build, dark clothing, walking with that same slight left-forward lean. My lean. I grabbed my keys and took the stairs, pushed through the 4th floor fire door. Empty. Completely, utterly empty. I walked the entire length of the hallway. Nothing. Checked the stairwells. Empty. Checked the elevator, ground floor, doors closed. No one had called it. Back in the maintenance office, I rewound the footage to 11:48. There he was, walking away from the camera. He reached the end of the hallway. He did not open the fire door. He did not enter any apartment. He simply walked to the edge of the visible frame. And then he was gone. But here's the thing that made my throat close up. In the footage of me entering the hallway, 90 seconds after the figure disappeared, I came through the fire door and I walked with the exact same gait, the exact same pace, the same number of steps. We were synchronized, not similar. Identical, as if someone had copied my movement data and pasted it onto a different body. Over the next 5 days, the figure appeared 3 more times, always on a hallway camera, always walking my walk, always gone by the time I reached the floor. It existed only on the recordings. Then things changed. 9 days ago, I was reviewing footage from earlier that day. I'd been on the 2nd floor at around 1 p.m., replacing a section of warped baseboard. I found the footage, watched myself work. Normal. Then I saw myself do something I did not do. On the footage, I finished the baseboard. I stood up. I gathered my tools. And then I turned and looked directly into the camera, that same patient angle. And I raised my left hand and pressed my index finger to my lips. I did not do that. I remember finishing the baseboard. I remember standing up, gathering my tools, and walking directly to the elevator. I did not stop. I did not turn. I did not raise my hand in some silent shushing gesture to a camera mounted 8 feet up on the opposite wall. But the footage showed me doing it. Clearly. Unmistakably. In the same clothes I've been wearing. With my face looking into the lens with an expression I don't think my face has ever made. I need to describe that expression. Because it matters. It wasn't menacing. It wasn't a grin or a snarl. It was calm. Settled. The way you'd look at someone who's about to understand something. The way a teacher might look at a student who's close to getting the answer. Like it was waiting for me to catch up. I watched it 4 more times, frame by frame, looking for signs of editing or corruption. The footage was continuous. No cuts, no splices, no artifacts beyond the usual compression noise. The timestamp ran smoothly. The shadow my body cast on the wall moved in perfect correspondence with my movement. It was me, doing something I didn't do, on a camera recording a moment I was physically present for. I started reviewing older footage, days I hadn't thought to check. I went back a week, 2 weeks. On the 9th of this month, the 5th floor camera captured me walking down the hallway at 3:22 a.m. I was asleep at 3:22 a.m. I'd taken NyQuil that evening for a headache. It knocked me out hard. I didn't wake up until 7, and yet the camera showed me walking the 5th floor hallway at 3:22 in the morning, wearing what I sleep in, gray t-shirt, dark track pants, walking slowly, deliberately, stopping every few feet to look at the apartment doors, not the numbers, the doors themselves, as if studying them, as if learning something from them. It reached the end of the hallway, stood there for almost a full minute, then turned around and retraced the path. Same speed, same gait, same pauses. Then it stopped, turned toward the camera, and stood there motionless for 2 minutes and 11 seconds, just standing, facing the lens. At 3:22 in the morning while I was drugged asleep in the basement, its face, my face, was still, not blank, still. There's a difference. Blank means nothing is happening. Still means everything is happening, but none of it is moving. I went back further, found more instances. Always at night, always on the hallway cameras, always pausing at doors, and always at some point turning to face the camera with that patient stillness, as if it knew, as if it has always known, that eventually I would look. That's when I started setting alarms. 2 a.m. 4, I dragged myself to the maintenance office and watched the feeds live. And on the live feeds, nothing happened. The hallway stayed empty, nothing moved. But when I'd review the recordings the next morning, recordings from the exact time periods I'd been watching live, the figure would be there. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I was watching the feeds live. The hallways were empty, but the recordings being made at that same moment showed something in them. It was only visible in playback, only visible after the fact, as if it existed in the gap between the moment and the memory of the moment. I tested it, brought my phone to the maintenance office, pointed it at the security monitor, recorded the live feed while the DVR recorded simultaneously. Later, I compared them. My phone footage showed empty hallways. The DVR footage showed the figure, same cameras, same time, same hallways, different contents. 6 days ago, I stayed up until 3 a.m., went to the 5th floor and stood in the hallway, in the exact spot where the figure kept appearing. I wanted to feel something, some trace, some residue. The hallway felt the way hallways feel at 3 a.m., empty, overlit, too quiet. The carpet absorbed my footsteps so completely that I felt weightless. I stood there for 20 minutes. Nothing happened. But when I reviewed the footage, I sat down on the maintenance office floor and stayed there for a very long time. The recording showed 2 of me. One was me, the real me, standing where I remembered standing, wearing what I was wearing, arms at my sides, looking around occasionally. The other was at the far end of the hallway, same posture, same clothes, same build, also just standing there. Neither figure acknowledged the other. I stood for 20 minutes and left. The other one remained for another 11 minutes. Then it turned, faced the camera, and pressed a finger to its lips. I was in that hallway. I stared directly at that spot multiple times. There was nothing there, but the recording says we were in the same space, 20 meters apart, breathing the same air at 3 in the morning. I've thought about this seriously. Considered the possibility that I'm experiencing some kind of dissociative episode, sleepwalking, fugue states. But that doesn't explain the footage from when I was awake. That doesn't explain the shushing gesture I remember not making in a moment I was fully conscious for. That doesn't explain 2 figures in the same hallway when I was one of them, and I could see the other wasn't there. 4 days ago, something changed again. This is the part I've been avoiding. I was reviewing the 5th floor footage from the previous night, but this time the figure wasn't just walking. It was standing outside Unit 514, Mrs. Chen's apartment, and Mrs. Chen's door was open. The figure stood in the doorway for over 4 minutes, not entering, just looking inside. Then it stepped through. The camera only covers the hallway. I watched the open doorway and waited for it to come back out. It didn't. Not in 10 minutes. Not in an hour. I scrubbed forward through the entire night. At 5:44 a.m., Mrs. Chen opened her door from the inside and stepped out with her recycling bag the way she does every morning. Her door had been closed. Whatever went in did not come back out. Or if it did, it happened in a window the camera didn't capture. I saw Mrs. Chen in the lobby later that day. She looked normal, smiled at me, asked if the recycling schedule had changed. But when she smiled, something flickered across her face, just for a moment. A kind of recognition that was slightly too deep. Like she wasn't just seeing me, like she was seeing something behind me, or inside me, or overlapping with me. And it was something she'd encountered before. I might be imagining that, but I promised myself I'd write everything down, even the things I can't verify. 3 days ago, I went back through weeks of footage on every floor. I found the figure on most nights, walking, pausing at doors, and on 3 occasions entering apartments through doors that appeared to simply be open. Different apartments, different floors, doors that should have been locked, standing open in the dark. I've started watching the tenants, not suspiciously. I just find myself paying attention. Mrs. Okafor's dog, who used to wag its tail when I passed, now presses itself against the far wall and won't make eye contact. Dean from 509 has started keeping his blinds closed during the day. The Andersons on the 3rd floor have put a heavy-duty deadbolt on their door, the kind you'd use on an exterior entrance. Maybe these things are unrelated. People change habits. Dogs have moods. But yesterday evening I was in the elevator with Mr. Byrne from the 2nd floor. 70s, retired, keeps to himself. We rode down in silence, and as the doors opened, he put his hand on my arm. His eyes were strange, not frightened, more like someone trying to confirm something. He said, "You work very late, don't you?" I told him I'm on call, but I'm usually done by 6. His hand stayed on my arm. Then he said, "I hear you in the hallway sometimes. At night, walking. You stop outside my door for a long time." My entire body went cold. I asked him what he meant. He said he hears footsteps very late, 2, 3 in the morning. Slow and deliberate. They stop outside his door. He can see the shadow underneath. He can hear breathing. After a few minutes, the footsteps continue. He said he assumed it was me doing late-night inspections. I told him it wasn't me. He looked at me for a long time, then he took his hand off my arm and walked away. He can hear it. He can see its shadow. It's not just on the cameras anymore. The tenants are starting to sense it. The dogs already know. Last night, and this is the last thing I'm going to describe, because this is the part that broke something in me. I set up a webcam in my apartment, connected to my laptop, pointed at my bed, recording all night. I needed to know if I was leaving, if maybe it was me after all. I took no medication, went to bed at 11, closed my eyes, slept. This morning I reviewed the footage. At 1:17 a.m. my apartment door opened. From the outside, my bed was in the frame. I was in it, clearly asleep, lying on my left side, blankets pulled up, completely still. The door opened slowly. Someone stepped inside the doorway, facing my bed. The webcam's night vision gave it that pale, overexposed look that makes everything appear flat and dimensionless. It was me. Same body, same posture, same face. It was wearing the exact clothes I'd taken off before bed, the jeans, the black sweater, clothes that were, at that moment, folded on my dresser. It stood 6 feet from my sleeping body for over an hour. It didn't move. It didn't approach. It just stood there, watching me sleep, wearing my clothes, wearing my face, standing in my home. At 2:23 a.m. it did something new. It pulled my desk chair away from the desk. The same way I pull it with the right hand, angling it slightly because the wheel sticks. And it sat down facing the bed. It crossed its legs the way I cross mine. Left over right. Hands in lap. And it sat with me while I slept. For the rest of the night. At 6:42 a.m., 18 minutes before my alarm, it stood up, pushed the chair back, walked to the door, opened it, stepped into the hallway. Then it paused, half in, half out of my doorway, and it turned back toward the room. Not toward me, toward the webcam. It looked into the lens. My face looked into the lens, and for the first time it did something beyond that patient stillness. It smiled. Not a grin, not a smirk, a small quiet smile, the kind you'd give someone you've been waiting for. Someone who finally showed up. Then it left. The door closed softly behind it. 18 minutes later, my alarm went off. I woke up feeling rested, normal. No memory of anything unusual. No sense that someone had been in the room. I reviewed the webcam footage 20 minutes ago, and now I'm writing this. Because here is the part I need someone else to know. The part that has made it impossible for me to stay in this building, but also the part that makes me suspect leaving won't matter. After I watched the webcam footage, I went to the maintenance office to check the hallway cameras. I wanted to see it leaving my apartment from the external angle. Corroboration. Proof from a second source. I pulled up the basement hallway camera. Found the timestamp, 6:42 a.m. My door opened. A figure stepped out. But it wasn't the other one. It was me, the real me, wearing what I'd slept in. The gray t-shirt, the dark track pants, not the jeans and sweater, walking out of my apartment, closing the door behind me and heading down the hallway toward the maintenance office. But I didn't do that. I was asleep until 7. I didn't leave my apartment until 7:15. The hallway camera showed me leaving at 6:42. The webcam showed the other one leaving at 6:42. Same door, same timestamp, 2 different figures, 2 different recordings. Both me. I checked the webcam again. At 6:42, the figure in jeans and a sweater leaves through the door. I checked the hallway camera again at 6:42. A figure in my sleepwear leaves through the same door. Same moment. Different figure, different clothes, different camera. And I no longer know which recording is real. I no longer know which figure is real. I'm sitting in the maintenance office right now. The monitors are in front of me. The hallway feeds are live. They show empty corridors, empty stairs, the lobby motionless. But the DVR is recording. And I know now that what the DVR captures and what I see on the live feed are not the same thing. The record and the reality have come apart. Something is living in the space between them. Something that looks like me. Something that is learning to be me, or has always been me. Or is replacing me so slowly that by the time anyone notices, there won't be a difference left to find. Mr. Byrne hears it walking. Mrs. Okafor's dog won't look at me. Mrs. Chen smiled at me like she recognized something she'd already seen. The building knows. I think it's known longer than I have. A few minutes ago, I did something I immediately regretted. I pulled up today's footage from the lobby camera. I wanted to see myself walking to the maintenance office this morning. I wanted to see the version of me that I know is real. I found it. 7:16 a.m. Me, entering the lobby from the basement stairs, walking across the frame, opening the maintenance office door, going inside. Normal. Real. Mine. But the camera caught the lobby in the background, the seating area, the chairs that nobody ever uses. Someone was sitting in one of them, facing the maintenance office door, sitting the way I sit, left leg over right, hands in lap, wearing my clothes. I didn't see anyone in the lobby this morning. I walked right past those chairs. They were empty. But on the recording, something was sitting there, watching me walk into the room where I'm sitting right now, where I've been for the last 20 minutes, writing this, with my back to the door. I haven't turned around. I'm not going to, because I can see the maintenance office on the monitor in front of me, the camera that covers this room. On the live feed, I can see the door behind me, and the door is open. I didn't open it. On the live feed, I can see myself, and I can see the open door, and I can see the hallway beyond it. The hallway is empty. But the DVR light is blinking. It's recording this moment right now. And I know with a certainty that has settled into my bones like ice water, that when I play this footage back, the hallway will not be empty. I'm going to stop writing now. I don't know who's going to read this. I don't know if it matters. I don't know if the version of me who wrote it will be the version of me who's here tomorrow. But if you ever pull up a security camera and see yourself somewhere you know you haven't been, don't investigate. Don't look deeper. Don't try to understand it. Because it isn't confused about which one of you is real. And the more you look, the more you give it to work with. The DVR light is still blinking. I'm going to turn around now.